You walked into the kitchen. You stood there. You don't remember why you came. The fridge is the same fridge it was 30 seconds ago. The light is the same light. The bowl on the counter is the same bowl. Nothing in the room is helping. A loop starts. Was it water? Was it the charger? Was there a pill that needed taking? The reasons hover and slide away. None of them feels exactly right. You have a name for this. Brain fog. Maybe early something. You take the small failure personally, like it is a thing your body got wrong. There is a problem with the diagnosis. The thing it is naming is older than the word memory. Some of what they call broken in you is older than the diagnosis. The obvious explanations come first. Stress, distraction, age, sleep. All four are real. None of them explains why this particular failure happens at this particular moment, the moment of the doorway. Look, in 2011, Gabriel Radvansky at the University of Notre Dame ran the experiment. The setup was simple. Subjects picked up an object, a colored shoebox, a wooden block, and walked across a room to put it down on a table. Then they were asked what they had been carrying. Half the time, the walking was within a single room. Memory was intact. The other half, the walking covered the same distance but passed through a doorway into a new room. Memory dropped. Not by a little, by a measurable, replicable margin. The act of crossing the doorway, not the walking, not the distance, not the time, the threshold itself was what cleared the workspace. Radvansky ran 4 experiments: real rooms, virtual rooms, doorways between identical environments, doorways between rooms with different colors and contents. The doorway effect held. He called it location updating. The brain, he proposed, indexes memory by physical context: the room, the lighting, the objects in it. Crossing a threshold tells the brain the previous context is no longer current. Page out what was held there. That is the obvious reading. The body reorganizes its memory at every door. But there is a second piece of evidence, and it complicates the first. In 2021, a team led by Oliver Bauman at Bond University in Australia ran the replication. 4 experiments: virtual reality, passive video, real walking, more than 100 subjects across the full set. They found something the original studies had missed. Doorways alone did not cause forgetting. Subjects who crossed thresholds between identical rooms with no other cognitive load mostly remembered just fine. The effect only appeared when 2 things were present at once: a context change, moving into a room that looked or felt different, and a working memory load, a second task using up the mental workspace. In other words, the doorway is not the cause. The doorway is the trigger. The cause is older. Jeffrey Zacks at Washington University in St. Louis has spent 20 years working out what the cause actually is. He calls it event segmentation. The brain does not record continuous experience like a video. It divides experience into episodes, short framed units of activity. Making coffee is one episode. Walking to the bedroom is another. Each episode has a boundary, and at each boundary, the brain does housekeeping. It compresses what just happened, indexes it for retrieval, and clears working memory for the next thing. A doorway is one of the strongest event boundaries the body knows. Stronger than a wall, stronger than a turn in conversation, stronger than time alone. Crossing through one tells the system, new episode starts here. If working memory was holding something fragile, a small intention, a passing thought, the reason for standing up, and the doorway fires the boundary signal, the old episode gets compressed before the new one fully loads. The intention disappears. Not malfunctioning, functioning. By the time forgetting got its medical name, the architecture it was naming had been doing this job for 100,000 generations without complaint. Older. This system is older than the kitchen, older than rooms with doors, older than the architecture that turned the home into discrete compartments. Here is where most explanations stop. The evidence does not. Event segmentation is not a quirk of memory. It is one of the basic architectures of cognition, present in monkeys, in dogs, in newborns. Wherever a brain has to plan ahead in a changing environment, it has to segment that environment into manageable units. Otherwise, nothing can be remembered, indexed, or acted on. For human ancestors, the boundary that mattered was not the doorway, it was the biome. Walking out of dense forest into open grass, walking from a sleeping camp toward a hunting trail, walking from a clearing toward a watering hole that might or might not have a predator. Each crossing carried a cost. The previous workspace, what had just been held, what had been worried, had to clear, so the new environment could be read freshly. The animal that walked into open grass, still planning the previous thought, was the animal that did not see the lion. Different environments demanded different attentions. The forest needed close vision and ears tuned for movement near the body. The open plain needed the long horizon, the silhouette at distance, the sky for shadow. Carrying the forest settings into the plain was a way to die. The mind learned to drop the previous setup at the line between them. You do not live in that landscape anymore. The kitchen does not change the survival problem when you walk into it. But the architecture that wrote you does not know that. Every threshold still fires. Every doorway still tells the brain. The previous intention is now part of a closed episode. The trace is still there. The kitchen at 3 in the afternoon. The same fridge, the same light. The reason is gone. The intention, the cup, the pill, the thing, was held in a workspace that closed when the body said, "New place." The body was not wrong. It was reading the room with an instrument calibrated for a step. What gets called distraction is the working version of the older system. The mind in the kitchen is doing exactly what the mind on the savannah did when the grass opened into a clearing. It is not a leak, it is a doorway doing its job. Tonight you will cross dozens more thresholds without thinking. Tomorrow you will cross one that exists only on paper. We will come back to that.